You know, every entrepreneur has a story, and there's perhaps no better storytellers than musicians.
If you're gonna start anything, especially like being an entrepreneur, you gotta build. Done is better than perfect. Sometimes it's done, okay, did the best we could. Let's put it out into the world and let's go on to the next one.
Hey, what's good? I'm Benjamin Gottlieb, and you are listening to Shopify Masters, your companion for starting and building a business. My guest today flew in all the way from Vancouver to be here with us in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Darren Metz, also known as Young D, and Quentin Nice, known as Young Tribes. They are the musical duo behind the band Snotty Nose Rez Kids. They're in town giving a preview of their new album and also some merch during the Santa Fe Indian markets, merch that they sell on Shopify. We're also chatting today as part of our series spotlighting Indigenous merchants and entrepreneurs on Shopify through our Build Native program. D, Tribes, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. That was quite the introduction.
Oh, well, you know, I get paid to do this, so what can I say?
Yeah.
So you two are cousins, right?
Yeah.
Working with family is not always easy, but tell me, why did you want to start a band together?
I mean, like, we've always just been around each other. Like, we grew up a couple of houses down from each other. You know what I mean? So
5 doors to be exact.
yeah. And we had like a open door policy between our families, you know, and that relationship just really started from there. And we grew up playing basketball together, and, you know, it's a game of imperfection.
just like anything in life, making music.
And like, so, you know, being able to you learn how to deal with adversity when you play like a team sport, you know what I mean? And we took everything that we learned from that into music. So it's like, you know, sometimes I'm gonna make mistakes or he makes mistakes. It's like, okay, let's not dwell on that. We just keep moving. And, you know, our relationship goes beyond music. You know what I mean? Like, if we weren't doing music, we'd still be chilling and hanging out together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right, because of your relationship growing up together.
Exactly.
Now you guys grew up in Kitimat, that's right, in Canada?
Yeah.
And,
exactly.
you know, I'm just curious, Tribes, what was it like growing up there?
It was good. We're from like we're actually 15 hours away from Vancouver. We're in a small rural community called Kitimat, and yeah, there's what there is to do there is what you make of it. You know what I mean? You just got to get out and do it. So like for me, I was always like an entrepreneur, always wanted to make clothes, always wanted to make music, always wanted to make money. And yeah, for me, like this kind of stuff just came second nature.
Well, it came second nature, but clearly your relationship together, I just met you guys recently, a few moments ago, clearly tight, right? But you have listeners and audience and fans well beyond this small town where you grew up in. Describe how the music scene has evolved, particularly for Native and Indigenous musicians like yourselves.
You saw the shifts like around the time when like I Don't Know More was happening. And that's when you really started to see like land protectors and, you know, academics just really starting to
Mesh
and reclaim the space and like really work together. You know what I mean? And like when we first started, we just wanted to make music for them, something that they could listen to, and obviously something that we wanted to hear. Because, you know, growing up for us, obviously there were Indigenous artists, but like social media wasn't social media yet. You know what I mean? So like you think of the times of like MySpace and things like that,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
So
I'm old enough to have a good MySpace page, you know what I'm saying?
And just to see the growth and the evolution over the years, it like, once it started, it just kind of just like took off like full send.
Yeah, and I come from like a line of like land defenders as well. So all the stuff that I Don't Know More and people that were like running Indigenous movements back in Vancouver, which we call our community, it just all came second nature for us, and it was just so easy to mesh with them and just become part of the community. So I think with us, just coming from a small community, it's easy to find community. So moving to a big city, it was easy for us to find our people in our space that we felt comfortable in, and then we just made it our own and ran with it.
Well, Tribes, you bring up something really interesting. Both of you do, actually. This concept of being a land defender. You know, it's perhaps not something that our audience is so familiar with. Can you just tell us what does that mean exactly, and how is it represented in your music?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, like with Native people, Native artists, Native activists, and just people that are forward thinking, I think you can't really separate identity from land, and just Native people in general. I can't talk about myself without talking about land that I'm from and that I'm here to protect. So for us, like with the way that our rights work, because of colonization, there's this thing called the Indian Act, and if we cannot survive off of our territories, then we forfeit the land that we reside on or that we're there to protect. So if our fishing, our hunting, anything that makes that land sustainable is not sustainable for life anymore, then the rights to that land is now forfeited to the government. So for
Government
us,
of Canada, you mean?
yeah, the government of Canada. I don't know how it works in the States. I'm pretty sure it's similar. But we're from unceded territory, which means we didn't give up our land rights or we didn't sign any deals with the government. So it's still ours. And there's a lot of movements around industry coming through our territories and trying to take that land from us. And people are fighting tooth and nail, and because it's their existence. That land is our existence. So the resistance is real for it.
And you two are from the Haisla community. Is that right? The Haisla tribe. Please, Dee, tell me, how is this represented in your music? This concept of defending your land and this concept of your own individual identities?
Yeah, it's just like we didn't really realize fully what we had growing up until we moved away and started living in Vancouver. Because now you're around a bunch of tall buildings, skyscrapers, city life. It's go, 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 go. And then
People from all over the world.
yeah, exactly. And that made us realize, like, when we look back at our hometown, to be surrounded by beautiful mountains and ocean. You know what I mean? Where, like, you don't necessarily have to worry about gang life. You got to worry about wildlife. You know what I mean? And, like, we have family that just make their living fishing. You know what I mean? You have family that supply, like, the food through hunting or, like, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? And say, like, when it comes to the land defenders, that's, like, what they're protecting. Because, obviously there's, like, oil companies or, like, whatever it may be trying to put, like, a pipeline through the land or whatever. And if that does happen, one leak and then, excuse my language, but, like, the water's you know what I mean? And there goes
There goes someone's livelihood.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So we both have family that has, worked their ass off to protect, especially.
Yeah, my uncle Gerald, he's actually one of the guys that is solely responsible in a duel that they used to have that protected the kitlope from being logged. And that's a huge feat.
And the kitlope, I'm sorry, is that
the kitlope is like it's like a very important rainforest to our world, I guess you could say. But yeah, he stopped that from being extracted. So like, yeah, I come from a long line of land defenders. That's what I mean, both on the political side and just on the frontline side. I guess that goes hand in hand as well. And frontline means like people that occupy land that is about to be.
Yeah, and that's where like a lot of inspiration comes from. Really, it's just like our family and our community. You know what I mean? They're like the backbone of who we are.
Well, speaking of your messaging and what you two are trying to accomplish with your music, you've been working on a new album called Red Future. I'm just curious, why did you decide to choose this particular event, the Santa Fe Indian Market, to launch some of these new tracks and also some of your new merchandise?
Yeah, I mean, Red Future in itself is about Indigenous futurism and just how we see Indigenous people, mostly creatives, occupying space and taking up space in all parts of the world. And, Indian Market is a good place to start for us because we've wanted to come out here for years. I know his wife has told us about her times here in the Indian Market. Like 10 years ago, she used to come out and like hitchhike across 2 countries to be here. And
it's a long journey.
Yeah.
I still shake my head.
Yeah. And for us, it's just like we wanted to come and just be like right in the mix of things and just get inspired by inspired natives, because like I'm excited to see what everybody brings to the table and what all the hype is about out here, because I know that there's a lot of really talented designers and jewelers and artists out here. So I just wanted to come and just be inspired.
Yeah, and it's a hell of a place to network too, you know what I mean? Like you got everybody from so many different nations and tribes all coming to Santa Fe. And, it's just a perfect opportunity. And it's almost like good marketing in itself, you know what I mean? Because we're going to preview some songs from the album, you know what I mean? And we got the new merch to show people like, hey, this is what's coming whenever, the tour starts. And it's just opportunities, Sometimes, well, especially in business, like you can't let an opportunity pass by because you don't know if it's going to come around again.
And it's just a brush on that networking thing too, man. Like, like we talk about community, and like this is like opportunity to meet more people from community. Like Indian country is a very small place when you think about it, like especially with social media the way it is, who's who and what's what, you know what I mean? And like coming out here, like we've met some of our best friends just by coming to places like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have like lifelong connections with people just from coming to events like this. So yeah, we're excited to experience it firsthand.
Well, first time here, and I'm sure you guys are going to have a great time. My guests today, Young D and Young Tribes. They are the musical duo behind the band Snotty Nose Rez Kids. We talked a little bit before about just how you're able to be so successful, not just with your music, but with your merch. Before we started, you guys told me sometimes you tour and you have 80 to 100 concerts a year, performances a year. That's a lot. But here at Shopify, we've been good partners for you in selling what you've got, selling representations of your band, your music, your messaging online. D, I'm just curious, why Shopify? Why did you decide to go with us?
It was just what worked best for us, and it was very easy to set up. And we did once upon a time have through our own individual website, and it was just kind of hard to keep up with. So then once we switched to Shopify, it was
it's much more manageable, much more organized.
We were able to be on top.
Yeah.
And it was
it's just very accessible
helpful
for our consumers.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just made our lives a lot easier.
Made your lives easier to distribute all of the merch, all the shirts, all the gear.
Exactly. Yeah.
And when it comes to kind of getting your message and your stuff out there, what sort of tactics do you guys employ to get out the word about, the newest shirt or the newest outfit?
Just rollout, just album rollout, just spacing everything, timing everything, and making schedules for posts on Instagram, TikTok videos, stuff like that. In the early days, it was funny. We used to play basketball in a big tournament up north in northern BC, actually, called the All Native Basketball Tournament. And when we first started, we'd be going up aisles, just holding merch up and just being Snotty Nose Rez Kids, new band on the scene. And now just to see how this has all come full circle, and now we're doing a podcast with Shopify, and it's crazy, man. Just seeing how far we've come. I just had a moment right here, and yeah, just having the proper team behind us, having Shopify, having Brody our manager, and just planning properly, I guess.
How about that, right? I mean, I do a lot of these interviews, and I often hear, regardless of what your background is, so many common threads. And the one I often hear is this idea of physically carrying your gear or your merch around to people. Be like, hey, check out this shirt. Hey, you guys, hey, check out Snotty Nose Rez Kids.
We used to, sorry to interrupt you. We used to post, we used to go to basketball tournaments and stuff and have pieces of paper like that and post designs on telephone poles and show them where to get it. That's the shit we used to do.
We'd be putting up our own posters, trying to promote our own show, and
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and in small towns, that's kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
So people would be oh, yo, they see advertisement,
a flyer,
a flyer on telephone poles and stuff, and it'd be merch, it'd be everything, and it would catch your eye. It worked because it wasn't a big city. You're going to a corner and it's just loaded with those. Not like that in our small towns. So that was a tactic that we used.
Well, now you have international recognition, so I would imagine your
it's a lot easier.
Well, I mean, you would imagine just your brand recognition is much more sophisticated now. So are your marketing strategies, right? D, when you think about where you are today and where you two were at these basketball tournaments, posting flyers, what would you say to the entrepreneur listening, perhaps an Indigenous entrepreneur who might be tuning in, thinking, man, I want to emulate that success? I mean, what sort of advice might you have there?
Passion, patience, and perseverance, man. We weren't getting, I would say, livable money until 3 years in. You know what I mean? It's if you're going to start anything, especially being an entrepreneur, you're going to eat for a few years. You know what I mean? So like, you got to build. And our mentality was, you only quit when you only lose when you quit.
Yeah.
And, we just kept going. It's like, okay, this merch drop, we sold this. And like, keep in mind, like, he's like really business minded. Like, he got his diploma and all that. And, he would really lead the way. It's like, okay, these sizes sold a lot more, so let's order these ones a bit more next time. Okay, for this design, let's do a little something new and this and that. And it's just like, just continuing to like push the boundaries.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to learn.
Yeah.
And don't be discouraged by the letdowns, because everything goes up from there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And yeah, and like you said, nothing happens overnight. So like those 1% overnight stories are very unrealistic. And just make sure that you love it. And it's almost like a passion project at first. It needs to be a passion project. And yeah, you need to love what you do, because if you're in it for the money doesn't come right away, man. You're gonna be waiting for a long time till you love that, if that's what it's about.
Well, it sounds like what you're talking about is experimentation and being comfortable experimenting. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask a follow-up question to that, which is, a lot of folks don't have the luxury of being able to experiment. And this becomes a barrier to entry socioeconomically for lots of communities, right?
Yeah.
Folks might not have the ability to take a big risk like that.
Yeah.
Right?
And I mean, like, like we're lucky enough to be kind of in an industry that is digestible by people all over the world. So like, we make music, so it was easy for us to do what we love, because you put it on a streaming platform instead of putting it in Shopify in a store and have people be like, oh, I hope they catch on to this. So we started with music. Obviously the music came first, so as long as we made music that people liked, the merch would come after that. And if our merch reflected our music, then we knew that the people that were digesting our music would be able to take in the merch. So it kind of went hand in hand with us for that as well. But as far as like, like I'm doing like Savage Kids right now, and that's a startup, but also we're Snotty Nose Rez Kids. So it's going to be like a lot easier because I have my foot in the door. But, like we said, like everything starts from the ground up. So
yeah. Also, I want to add one more thing to that. One of our sayings, like, since we started doing music, was like, done is better than perfect. My best example to give is like, look at the very first episode of The Simpsons and then look at it now. You know what I mean? Like, the animation wasn't all there. Maybe it was for the time that it came out, but like, done is better than perfect. And if you're trying to wait till it's like perfect, chances are you're not really gonna get there. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's done, okay, did the best we could. Let's put it out into the world and let's go on to the next one. You know what I mean? We had that mentality with every song and every album that we've put out, every piece of merch that we've put out, and it's just,
and
keep going.
And as far as merch goes, I guess like, or not, yeah, merch or product, I guess. Don't oversaturate don't oversaturate like your line.
Don't make too much stuff.
Yeah,
release at the same time.
Yeah. Don't make too much stuff at once, especially when you're just starting out. I think it was really important for us to have a couple pieces and make sure that those sell, and that we're not left with a bunch of stuff in back order or just in our stock. And even to this day, like we're creating more like 8-9 pieces per drop. But back in the day, we'd make one.
Yeah.
We started with one piece. It was just like this, actually. And it said Miné across the chest. And, I started doing that when we had no money. We had $0 to our name. And what I did was I went to Bang On. It was a print company. And it was just iron-on. It was just Miné across the chest. And those sold. I was selling those for $50 a piece. And, I'd get 15 made. I'd sell those out. I'd have more money. I'd go back. I'd do that again. I'd go back to the streets, be like, who wants these Miné tees? They got more popular. Next thing I know, I'm doing screen print orders. And I'm selling them for $50 a piece, $40 a piece, and moving like 100. And it started like that. It started just very gradually, and that was with $0 to my name, so anybody can do it. You know what I mean? As long as you got something behind the brand.
So we'll talk a little bit more about the merchandising because I think it's really fascinating. Before we continue, I want to take a moment and talk to you, the listener. Thank you so much for tuning in to Shopify Masters on the podcast feed or on YouTube. And hey, this episode is part of our larger series. Do us a favor, look back through our catalog. You can see more of these episodes And in the description box here, if you want to take charge of your own financial future, click on the link to a free trial from Shopify. Tribes, before we took that break there, we were talking about merchandising and this idea of limited releases. Why was that the right strategy for you guys?
I think more than anything, it was more like working with what you had. And, a couple kids from small community, Northwest, BC, Little Rez, coming to the big city, we didn't have a lot. We didn't have a lot of money to start up with the company. So we worked with what we had, and we bought a certain amount of T-shirts, and we just got them laminate press, like iron-ons, and started there and worked from the ground up. So once we sold all that, we'd go buy more and keep doing that until it caught on. And then eventually it did.
Well, clearly it's caught on. And D, I mean, I would imagine when you think about how different things are now, must really, really strike you as being quite incredible, right?
Oh, for sure. Like, just to see the growth, like, I'm a sucker for nostalgia, you know what I mean? And the Facebook memories that pop up every day? Yeah, I check that, and I'll just see.
He always sends me those memories too.
I'm like, yo, on this day,
and Trump's like, again? You say this again?
Yeah. But it's cool, man, because when we started off with that very first tee, we ironed on, we still got friends and fam that still have those T-shirts.
It's still rock it.
Yeah, and from the shirts that we made for the first album, the second album, we do our absolute best to make it like a standalone piece. And then with the fans that still hold on to those, it's like memorabilia now, and that's truly what the goal is all the time.
And it's so funny to see, sometimes we'll be at a show in middle of nowhere, and not even expecting to have day ones out there, and people will come up with the Mene t-shirt, the one that we started with, the original one. Mene means brother in our language, and they'd come to our shows and be like, "Yo, I got this when you guys first started. I've been here since day one." I'm like, "Damn, that's crazy."
That's love.
Because that was a while ago, yeah. So it definitely does make you feel good to see that.
Well, I'm just like D insofar as I'm the guy who sends his friends the old Facebook memories. So if any of my friends are watching, they'll be like, yeah, that's Ben. That's what he does. Yeah. But since then, you've become much more sophisticated with your marketing, especially on social media. I mean, you have your music, but also you have a pretty clear strategy about what you're doing online. Walk us through that and how that's evolved over time.
Yeah. I mean, our team has gotten bigger. The band has gotten bigger. The merch drops have gotten bigger. We put everything on Shopify too, and it just makes it easier. So I think the strategies are still the same. We stick to one color for each design. We don't saturate that. We don't put a red, a green, a white.
You save costs there as well,
Yeah,
probably.
we save costs, and it just makes it easier for us on tour, when we're selling it and people are looking at it. The merch tables.
Yeah,
and stuff
if you're at a concert
shows.
hall and there's one of those merch tables. Yeah,
it saves Brody a lot of time from being like, okay, yeah, this, and then oh no, I'll try it in that color.
Brody's your manager.
Brody's our manager. Yeah.
I mean, we have done colors in the past on our merch, and it's like anything with, especially being an entrepreneur, it's you live and learn. You know what I mean? You just gotta learn as you go.
But we got a team behind us too, and Brody, our manager, he is a beast on just our scheduling and our planning, and we have really good album rollouts, which in turn turn to good merch rollouts. It's every year or two we'll put out an album, and it'll be a really big album, especially in North America. And we got a lot of big fan base, so it'll sell all year long. And then we do like you said before, we do the 80 to 100 stop shows a year. So the merch does really well for us.
So a combination of your shows, in-person selling of your merchandise, and also selling online. That's been a successful strategy for you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Tribes, you've also got your own new line. You mentioned that in the interview a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
What is the idea behind that, and how does it relate to what you two are doing as cousins, as a band, as a rap group, and just in general in your community?
Well, Savage Kids came up. I came up with Savage Kids a few years ago. A few years after we came up with Snotty Nose Rez Kids, and Snotty Nose Rez Kids is about showing where you come from, wherever you go, and just being a good human, you know, and like and just being good to people and them being good back to you, and bringing community with you wherever you go. And you know, like we express ourselves the way that we do. We may look a little rough around the edges, you know, but like there's beauty in all that. And Savage Kids is just being the raw, true version of yourself, no matter what environment you're in, and just making sure that everyone knows who you are.
So not adapting to the environment, but
Exactly.
having the environment adapt to you.
Exactly. And that's what like Savage Kids is kind of like built around. And it's just for, you know, it's for the guys that were the outcasts in the back of the room growing up. And yeah, so this is our debut for Savage Kids. But, you know, like I'm a stylist at heart. You know, like that's always been fashion's my passion, you know, as corny as that sounds. But like I do everything for Snotty Nose Rez Kids. We don't have a stylist. Like he has a couple of bars about that. But yeah, it kind of
So you're styling up D then?
Yes, I style D. I style like the video shoots. I style the album covers. I do the merch as well. Savage Kids. So like everything kind of goes hand in hand for me, and it's kind of like an adaptation of my mindset. So it's just like how my brain works. Like how we look is like how my brain works.
You know, we've been cultivating some themes doing these interviews, especially here in Santa Fe. And one of the things that keeps popping up is this idea of reclamation, right? Reclaiming spaces, reclaiming identity, reclaiming words even. D, I'm curious, this concept of Savage Kids or just Snotty Nose Rez Kids in general, are you reclaiming something and what is it?
We're just becoming the people that we've always wanted to be. And we weren't always allowed to do that. You know, like even going back to high school, you know, he's told me stories about him trying to go to like a party with the high school team, but like wasn't allowed in just because of for who he is and where he comes from.
Basketball team?
Yeah. And like that's happened to us time and time again to we were like just shamed into being who we are. And it's now we're flipping the script. It's like, yeah, this is who I am. And this is how we're going to express ourselves, you know, like whether it's through music, whether it's through fashion, whatever it may be. Like the more lanes that we have to express ourselves, like that's exactly what we're going to do.
Yeah. And also like Snotty Nose Rez Kids and Savage Kids, it is a form of like reclaiming words and like stuff that was like kind of invented to bring us down, you know. Savage, like, you know, the movie Pocahontas, obviously.
Sure, of course.
So there's a song in that. It goes like Savage Kids, savages, barely even human. And we beat a Catholic school growing up, and I think it was netball. Like we whooped their asses. And when we were done, they started chanting savages, like, and it was messed up, man. So like that really stuck with me growing up. And me and my dad had a conversation about it. And he said like that's just the way the world is. It made me remember what the message was behind that. And it was that society was built to take us down a notch and keep us there and keep us under their boot, and not to let that stuff like kind of get to you, but just be proud of who you are and the skin that you're in. And don't be comfortable, be confident, you know? And that's words that we live by. And so Savage Kids is just like a memory of that, and just letting them know that we are truly unapologetically ourselves in everything we do. In
A reclamation of self.
Exactly. And we will continue to create in our names and just create the vision that we see.
And D, you wanted to add something from a little bit earlier. Yeah?
Yeah, when it comes to like, you know, he does like not just big hand in the merch, and obviously it was Savage Kids and like getting the fits right for music videos and stuff like that. Like I know what he brings, you know what I mean? And like one of the reasons why like we work so well together is because like I'm more on like the music side, whether it's like being the engineer for us or okay, let's get this rough mix or like whatever it may be, you know? And like that's truly why, like another reason why we've been able to have the success that we've had is because we just balance each other, you know what I mean? And
knowing
like,
your strengths, delegating your weaknesses,
like
right?
he's like extroverted. I'm more introverted. I'm more comfortable being in the studio, on my laptop, doing music. You know what I mean? And he's good and like way beyond good when it comes to like networking and talking to people. And okay, I got this person to help on the album cover. I got this person to help on the album cover. I got so-and-so to, they're gonna, hook us up with like jewelry and stuff like that, or like whatever the case may be, you know what I mean? Like, and that's truly why, like, it just works. Like,
Yeah,
we just,
I was gonna say,
balance
like,
each
I get
other.
us out there, I get everything out there, and he keeps us grounded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it works.
I'll tell you what also has worked. Meeting you two, sitting down together, talking about Snotty Nose Rez Kids, talking about Savage Kids, Young D, Young Tribes. To you both, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for having us.
And thank you for watching this episode of Shopify Masters. Please make sure to subscribe to this channel to catch more episodes.